Hello everyone, my name is Corey Foroy, and this is Aquila lore and mythology. I'm going to be breaking down, the first part of the lore and going over a lot of the myths and, name references and everything. And also with some of my critiques. I downloaded this template from slides ago, and this is me saying that I did that and giving them credit for that. What are my qualifications? So I've played through all of Aquila. I finished all 3 dungeons. I know Greek and Latin, so I'm familiar with a lot of these myths already, having read them in one of those languages, and because I'm making a YouTube video on this. Anyways. So at level 30, Cyrus Drake is like, hey, you should go to Aquila. And you're like, what's Aquila? And he's like, someone hasn't been doing the readings. And you're like, oh no. And he sends you to Romulus to find out how to get there. So Romulus just straight up doesn't remember. He's like, I don't, ask the librarian how you get there. So yeah, you do. Anyways, so what's the origin of Romulus's name? Who's Romulus in myth? Romulus was just one of the many founders of Rome. And Romans like to reestablish themselves. There's 4 names of people I can think of who established Rome, quote unquote. He's just the namesake. Anyways, chariots. So you learn that Harold has beef with the fire professor. That's really funny to me. So he tells you to look for the chariot of Atheon and the scrolls. So you look for the chariot section. Find all these other chariots listed: chariot of fire, chariot of the sea, chariot of the sun, chariot of thunder, and chariot of Alkali. So going over each of them, the chariot of fire is what the angels ride down from heaven in Christian myth, which makes this one of, if not maybe the only reference to Christian mythology in the entire game. Maybe Seraphim, I'm not sure if that's Christian or not, but anyways, feel free to yell at me in the comments if I'm not right on that. I don't want to make the argument that Jesus is canon in the Wizard101 universe, but I did find this meme. Anyways, chariot of the sea is just Poseidon's. Chariot of thunder, I skipped chariot of the sun. Chariot of the sun is Helios's, and Helios is the god of the sun, also kind of the sun. Anyways, so there's a myth on how one of his sons, Phaeton, Phaeton was like, hey mom, who's my dad? And she was like, oh, it's the sun. If you want to meet him, go really, really, really far east. So he goes really, really, really far east, because that's where the sun, rises. And he's like, hey dad. And Helios is like, hey Phaeton, my son, do you want to drive the sun chariot? And Phaeton is like, yeah dad. So he drives the sun chariot, except he gets too close to Earth and crashes and falls off. And so him getting too close to Earth, kind of scorches and burns places in the east, which is kind of, from the Greek perspective, it's the myth that explains why, the east is a lot more, desert-y, and why people there have, darker skin, because they were burned by Phaeton messing up and off-roading. Chariot of Thunder, can't find too much information on. I'm assuming it's probably in reference to Thor. Chariot of Alkali is Kali's from, Hinduism. I think there should be more Hinduism stuff in Wizard101. I think that'd be really cool to see. I don't know. Anyways, chariot of Atheon, which is what you use to get to Aquila. It's kind of weird because, again, the scroll says chariot of Atheon, but the quest says Apollo's chariot, which is a little weird. Atheon is one of Ares' horses. But then the quest dialogue is oh, Atheon is the horse that takes you there, actually, and he's one of the Pegasus of the sun. With, they got a horse from myth, at least. I don't know. Anyways, up to this point, they've stayed, 100% Roman myth. So that's just an interesting thing to note. Guardian of Hesperides, going over the NPCs in here. So you have Silenus, who's a satyr. Satyr's a half-man, half-goat. So he's the tutor of Bacchus. I believe he was chosen because he's a tutor and they just needed a teacher character. And then you have Calchos Coppersmith. Calchos just means copper, bronze, so his name is Coppersmith. Then you have Aegle, who's one of the names of the daughters of the Hesperides, though this game says that she's like Silenus' daughter. I don't really know why, though they probably chose the name Aegle because they're all birds. Anyways, it's a bit weird that like they say she's Silenus' daughter, because the Hesperides were like the daughters of Atlas, also known as just daughters of Hesperides. So like, does she have like two dads? Like, are Silenus and Atlas gay? I don't know. Anyway, so the Garden of Hesperides is where the rare and elusive like golden apples grew, but you could just get them for like super cheap at the bazaar, so they're not too elusive in game. Anyways, so you get to Mount Olympus. Kind of in the front, there's 6 different statues of the gods, and then there's the big Zeus one in the back. Anyways, I wasn't able to get a photo of all the statues because I ran into a graphical glitch that did this whenever I did. I don't know why, so I wasn't able to get them all, but I got screenshots of each of the gods. Anyways, so Mount Olympus is where the gods reside in Greek myth. Anyways, so we're first tasked by Athena battle site to, collect these different tokens. And this is now where we are mixing our Greek and Roman paradigms, because she's Athena and not Minerva. And yeah, she's a snowy owl, and she says you have to defeat Apollo Bright One, who's a rooster. So battle site is a reference to the fact that Athena is like the goddess of like wisdom and strategy. And her design is like an owl, which makes sense because she's tied to like owls. And owls, like strategic hunters. Though I would have preferred her design to be more of like a great horned owl, but I'll get to that in like a second. Apollo Bright One is a reference to the fact that Apollo is the god of the sun, and he's in like the sun chamber. And him being a rooster makes sense because, roosters crow at dawn. And so Apollo has like with him some elite Cyclops guard. And Cyclops are just one-eyed men who are the sons of Poseidon. And we don't see Artemis New Moon, who you have to fight afterwards, but she's not here right now. So you would fight her in the moon chamber. And again, New Moon, Artemis is like the goddess of the moon and also like the hunt. I think it would have been cool to see Artemis. I think Artemis should have been the snowy owl because, again, like hunting bird at night and also like white ties to the moon, whereas Athena should have been like some great horned owl or other owl. I think that would just been a better design. Anyways, so you fight an Ophidian archer. Ophidian just means snake. So you fight a snake archer and a crescent moon centaur in the moon chamber. So centaurs are very chill. They just half people, half horses. And except for this battle, and if you piss off like a life wizard, like they're chill. Praetorian Guard are you have to fight them because they have like the 3rd token. And they were the Roman guard that protected the emperor. Again, why are the Greek gods being protected by Roman soldiers? They're just mixing their Greek and Roman. I mean, it's fine. No one's gonna get too angry at that. There is one of them that just like bonks this NPC on the head every few seconds. Asshole. So next we go to Eris. And you have to defeat like more Cyclops guards here, and then you talk to Athena again. But then you run into Eris Golden Apple. It's goddess of discord. So the Golden Apple part in her name is from the fact that Peleus and Thetis were getting married, and they're like, we're gonna host the coolest, most amazing, fun party wedding ever. And they invite everyone but Eris. And so she shows up unexpectedly and like drops a golden apple and is like, hey guys, this is for the prettiest goddess. And then she dips. And so long story short, it led to the Trojan War. And she makes you play just like, effectively just reskinned rock, paper, scissors. Answers are just tapestries on the wall. Here are the pieces. They just put pieces down and then you have to look at the wall and like throw whatever piece is like there, and it's a whole thing. Anyways, so you have a Minotaur warrior, Carthaginian elephant, gladiator Democharis, Ophidian archer, and Hades are your 5 like little figures here. So the Minotaur was the son of Pasiphae and the Cretan bull. So basically Minos, who's the king of Crete, asked Poseidon to show if he had like favor with him by sending him a snow white bull, which Minos would then sacrifice to Poseidon. but Minos was like, wow, this bowl is like so pretty, I'm gonna keep it for myself and sacrifice a substitute. So he keeps it, but he's punished for doing so, and that Aphrodite makes his wife Pasiphae fall in love with the bull, and then 9 months later, there's a half man, half bull baby with a hunger for human flesh. Oopsie. So, one fun fact I want to go into here is the reason you always see minotaurs depicted with a double-headed axe as their weapon is because Labyrinth, which, we think of as like a maze and what the minotaur was kept in, translates to House of the Double-Headed Axe. So, and fun thing about that myth as well is that it originated from the fact that at Crete there are a bunch of ruins, like a big palace, but they only really had like kind of the first floor and the remains of that left. And there are a lot of paintings of like bulls all in ruins, and so the Greeks were like, whoa, this must have been like a giant maze and all these like bulls everywhere. And so the myth of the Minotaur exists from like the Greeks doing archaeology. Carthaginian elephant. So Carthage was like the enemy city to Rome, and Carthage was in North Africa, and they had elephants, and so famously Hannibal, a Carthaginian, a general, like attacked Rome with a bunch of elephants. So that's why it's an elephant here. Gladiator Democharis. So Democharis was actually a class of gladiator than like a specific person. Democharis means like two-knifed, so you can see him here holding 2 knives. Ophidian archer, again, we already said, just snake archer, and then Hades, who is just here. So red figure paintings. In Greek art, there's a handful of different styles of paintings, and they're just named after colors. So you have like red figure, white figure, black figure, which is exactly what you think it is. So we have red figure paintings here, and they just show different myths and battles, and you have to like see what battle tapestry corresponds to the puzzle. It's fairly easy puzzle. Anyway, here's just all the myths and me going over them. So, in the First Achaean War, the sons of the Minotaur overwhelmed the Ophidians at Sicyon, crushing them beneath their axes and horns. So I can't find anything on this. So the Sicyons were in battle against, like, Thebes at one point, but then they fell to Agamemnon. And I couldn't really find anything on, like, the Minotaurs or Ophidians here. But Sicyons weren't really in any battles, other than, like, those ones. The navigator Hanno sailed from the Gulf of Corinth and intercepted the Minotaur Pylos. Polo fell into the skyway and was lost. So Hanno was a real guy. He was a navigator from Carthage, and he colonized West Africa by sea in the 5th century. Though in terms of falling into the skyway, the closest myth I can point to is that of the Hellespont. So Ino, who was the stepmom, was jealous of her kids, Phrixus and Hele, but the spirit of their mother, Nephele, showed up as a golden winged ram and flew them to Colchis, which is not Corinth. But on the way, Hele fell off, and the Hellespont is named after her, because that's where she fell. And if you've heard of the myth of the Golden Fleece with like Jason and the Argonauts, it's from this ram who they sacrificed, and then who also became Ares, the astrological symbol. Yeah, greatest gladiator of all time was Democharis, but when this warrior tried to overthrow Mount Olympus, he was defeated and chained in the pit of the Nakai. So Democharis, again, type of gladiator. There's a secret fight in the pit of the Nakai here, but the fun thing about that is it's already genitive. So pit of the Nakai translates to pit of the noxious. Like, good job there, I would say, because it doesn't really translate into English well, but, I can tell someone there knows Latin. In the early days of Aquila, Hades battled and subdued Cerberus, the 3-headed dog. He brought him to Tartarus as servant and guard. So I couldn't find anything on Cerberus being, like, subdued by Hades. It's just that, like, Cerberus is his dog. And before Cerberus had a name, it was just, like, the dog. So Cerberus just guards the gates of Hades, making sure, like, souls don't sneak out or sneak in. So Cerberus, in early myth, they couldn't really decide on how many heads he had. So he had, like, 10, he had 100, he had 50, and then it just kind of settled to 3 heads. And his name could maybe translate to, like, death darkness, which would make sense for, like, the god of the dead to name his dog something really edgy, And then Aetolia, the Ophidian assassin, Iarus struck and killed the warrior Tris with a poisoned arrow. So Aetolia, like, was a city, but the only kind of myth that happens there is the myth of the boar hunt, which maybe this is referencing. But the myth of the boar hunt is basically just like the Marvel Infinity War of Greek myth, and that all your favorite mythological heroes just come together and fight a boar. Yeah, then we get to Hephaestus. So after you figure out the puzzle, you do another Cyclops fight. Then you go to Hephaestus Coppersmith, who's the god of like smithing. And I think Kelkos Coppersmith is just made by him, because again, they have that same name. And he's like, I can't help you right now because I can't move. And you have to go grab his like bronze eagles on a little fetch quest. So I do like that they kept his disability, because he is famously disabled in Greek myth. Though I do think he should have been like a magpie or a crow, some kind of bird that knows how to use tools. Anyways, you're like, hey, can we get the Sky Iron Hasta? And he's like, actually, Ares has it right now, so you gotta go fight Ares. So you go fight Ares. Ares Savage Spear, who's the god of war. And yeah, you fight him, and you win. I wish Ares was like a shrike instead of an eagle. If you don't know what a shrike is, they're a bird that impales their prey onto thorns. I think that would have been a bit more thematic and a lot cooler, but I don't know. And then you fight Zeus. Zeus Skyfather, which, again, Skyfather, god of the sky and, like, thunder, and is, like, everyone's dad. And even though he's the god of, like, thunder and lightning, he is myth, and his corresponding spell is storm, though it makes sense for him to be, like, myth. Because Poseidon is storm, you learn later. Though it's a little weird, and I don't blame him for being weird. I would have also complained if he was storm, you know. Anyways, he's way nicer in this fight than he needs to be. And then, yeah, you beat him. Woo. Thanks for watching. If I was a writer on this game, I would have named it Aquila with, like, 2 L's, because they're all birds. Anyways, I'm gonna have a part 2 coming soon that goes over the Poseidon and Hades dungeons. Like and subscribe and leave a comment if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.